Hello everyone, welcome to Infra Experts. Today is the third session on Terraform on AWS. Till now, what we have seen, let us just have a recap of the same. We have seen the basics of Terraform, which includes the Terraform fundamentals like commands, language, settings, providers, resources, variables, data sources, meta arguments, and all. We have also seen how to create an EC2 instance and how to create a static website using the EC2 instance. Here we are going to understand about few Terraform concepts in combination with few AWS resources. So let's see what we are going to learn in this session. So in here we will be seeing the Terraform concepts like Terraform input variables, Terraform output variables, Terraform data sources, which will include VPC-SSH and VPC-WEB, also AWS Services. And from practical purpose, we are going to implement how to dynamically get the latest AMI ID from AWS using Terraform Datasource Concept and then create the EC2 instance. Earlier we used default security groups. Here we will also create two resources, which is nothing but VPC-SSH and VPC security group resources, so that those can be used to access the EC2 instances. So using SSH, you will be able to log into the terminal of the EC2 instance, and using VPC security group, you will be able to access the web server. You also need to understand why we are creating two security groups. Both rules can be put in a single security group, right? So that is, we are doing this to demonstrate the list item, how we are going to pass into the EC2 instance with two security groups. So primarily what we are going to do, we are primarily going to define three input variables: AWS region, instance type, and key name of type string. Next, we are also going to define two resources of type security group: VPC, SSH, and VPC web. And in addition to that, we are also going to define two output values: public IP and public DNS. And we are also going to create a new data source to get the EC2 AMI ID using Terraform Datasources concept. We will also use the existing key pair Terraform in our case, which we already saw in our previous session. We will be using all these to create these steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to create an EC2 instance in a default VPC, and using all these 5 items. So this is what we are going to do end to end as part of this session. Here we are going to define input variables in variables.tf. So what all configuration files we are going to have in here? We will be defining the below configuration files like variables.tf, versions.tf, EC2 security groups, AMI data source, EC2 instance, and then outputs.tf. Before that, let's understand what are these variables in Terraform. So basically, there are three types of Terraform variables. If you are familiar with traditional programming languages, it can be useful to compare Terraform modules to function definitions: Terraform input variables, Terraform output variables, and Terraform local values. So Terraform input variables. Input variables serve as parameters for a Terraform module, allowing aspects of the module to be customized without altering the module's own source code, and allowing modules to be shared between different configurations. Standard definition for any programming language for the variables. So one important thing from Terraform perspective is we can pass these input variables for Terraform in 10 different ways. So we need to master the 10 different concepts when we discuss about the input variables in Terraform. So the input variable basics, this is we are going to pass now. Provide input variables when prompted during Terraform plan or apply. So whenever you are going to run Terraform apply, during the time it will be prompted for providing the variable. Override default variable values using CLI argument -var. With -var argument for your Terraform apply, you can provide the value. Override default variable values using environment variables tf_var underscore AA, which is nothing but your variable name. So with defining the environment variables tf underscore var underscore your variable name, you will be able to pass the variable. Provide input variables using the terraform.tf vars file. In addition to that, by defining the things in terraform.tf vars file, you can do that. Provide input variables using any name.tf vars with CLI argument -var file. Any name.tf vars files with -var file argument to a Terraform apply, you can do that. Or with file underscore name.auto.tf vars file, you can apply. Like this, there are multiple ways in which you can play with input variables. But the core concept here is that we are going to implement it in a real life model where we are going to use few of these from the 10 different places. Here we are going to learn about the input variables, then terraform.tf vars file, then the auto.tf vars file, then also the with CLI argument you can do it. But you need to learn from all of them from certification point of view. So let's open our Visual Studio right now and let me make a file in here, YouTube third session. Okay, so this is done. Now we need to bring our settings block. So in our previous session we have this. Let us just copy this and paste it in here. So it is here, and let me just rename it. Rename into what? Versions.tf. So this has been renamed, and we will be having, as I said, the variables.tf, EC2 security group, everything. So let us first start with variables.tf. Before that, I would like to let you know that previously we were given this as hard coded. So in here we will be providing the variable over here. So to proceed with that, we need to go step by step. That's why let us proceed with the variables.tf. So let me create this. So in here, let me give this as input variables and hash AWS region. So let's define the AWS region variable. We are going to define a top level block in here, which is variable. Okay, and let me give the variable name as AWS underscore region. Now in here, let me give the description first of all. The description being let's say as region in which AWS resources to be created. Okay, and then the type in here we are going to put it as string. So the type of the variable and this type, whatever the AWS region is going to be of type string, and the default location being North Virginia, which is US East 1. So if you want to pass any default value for this variable, you need to do that with the default value. Okay, now we are done with this. Let us proceed with the instance type. So AWS EC2 instance type. In here, let me give the variable name as instance underscore type, and let me give the description as EC2 instance type. These spelling mistakes should not occur, or else it will be difficult for us to know. And here also let me give the type as string, and I need to mention the instance type. So the instance type should be t2.micro. So I have mentioned the t2.micro. As you can see in this slide, sensitive variable is there. So if we are putting the means if we in our EC2 instance, let us go back to our Visual Studio. So if you see in here, if I give this sensitive equals to true, so what does this mean? This is required if we are defining any variables like passwords. You can define them as true or false using sensitive. In addition to that, let me just delete it. In addition to this, you can have one more thing, which is validation. Okay, so what does this do? Using this validation, you can define some validation rules, like my AMI ID would be like this or that, something like that. So we won't be keeping this in here for our example. Next comes, we need to put the EC2 instance key pair also. So let us mention this. And let me give the variable name as instance underscore key pair underscore key underscore pair. So this is my variable name. And as always, let me give the description. Description being like AWS EC2 key pair that needs to be associated with EC2 instance. Okay. Next, what we need to give the type as string. Okay. And which key pair I will be using? The Terraform which we used in our previous session. So this we will be using. So now we are going to add that AWS region part in versions.tf. So this is done, right? So let us go to versions.tf. In here, I will be removing this hard-coded value as I said earlier. And in here, I will put in what the provider block, the region, it should be AWS region, right? So let me copy it. But before that, what I need to do, I need to mention that it's a variable. So var.aws region, I need to put that. So we are done with this. Now, next what we need to do, let us define the EC2 security groups to create the security group resources. So the name being EC2 security groups.tf. So this is done. So you can get all these samples from Terraform itself. Let us go to Google first. So in here, let me run Terraform AWS security group. And let me open this. In here, you can see that the resource name is AWS underscore security underscore group. So if I go here, I am going to refer the basic usage of this respective security group. So in our AWS console, if you are creating a security group, you need to give the security group name. Let us go in here. And if you go to here, what all things you need to give? You need to give the security group name, description, and in which VPC you are going to create it. And you need to define the inbound and outbound rules also. This is what you do as a part of security group. Now, in the same line, if you see here, the details are provided like the name, description, and VPC ID. Ingress is the inbound rule and egress is the outbound rule. So we can just copy it and change it wherever needed in our EC2 security groups.tf. So I will just copy paste it in here. Okay. And let me first comment it. Create security group. So we will be having two security groups as I said earlier. One is for SSH and another one is for HTTP web. Okay. So in here the resource block is AWS underscore security group and the resource local name is VPC-SSH. Okay. And then the name. So what should be the name? Let me give the name as VPC-SSH and the description as test VPC-SSH. Okay. This VPC ID, as I'm going to define it in a default VPC, I don't need to define this. So I'll just remove it from here. So I just removed it. And now I need to mention the inbound ports, right? So description being allow port 22. And from port should be 22. To ports should also be 22. Protocol let it be as TCP and the CIDR blocks. CIDR block you can see in square brackets. As you can see in here, this is a square brackets. So what does this mean? In Terraform, wherever you see square brackets, it is a list item, which means you can put multiple blocks in here like this and then comma and then you can put another block. Okay. So currently we need to open port 22 from internet. So I'm going to put here 0.0.0.0.0/0. Okay. If you have any other CIDR block, as I said, you can put like this 172 like this. Whatever you want, you can put it in here. I have just one, so I'm just putting this. I don't need this IPv6. And for the inbound, let me just give the description. Allow IP and ports outbound. Okay. And this will be port from port 00, that let it be as it is. CIDR block is fine. Let me just remove this IPv6. Okay. And then tags. In tags, let me give the name as VPC-SSH. So till now we have done what we have done. We have created the SSH traffic block. Okay. So in the same way, we need to create equivalent security groups for our web traffic also. So let's take this and let's copy paste it. Okay. So I have copy pasted it, and in here I need to change this one as web traffic. The resource name being, means the local name being VPC-web in here. Here also the name being web, and we are test description as web. Okay. So after this, which port we will be allowing in here? Ingress port 80. Okay. This is for HTTP. Port 80 we will be allowing in here. So let me give port 80. And this one is fine. We are going to add another ingress rule over here just to show you how it works. So what needs to be done for this? Let me just copy paste first. Okay. And here we will be allowing port 443. So 443. 443 is allowed. Now the egress also. Egress is means the outbound rule. This is fine. And I need to change the tag name as web. I hope this one missed somehow. So I am fine with this. Okay. So this is also done. So now we will focus on understanding about AMI data source. We need to reference this respective security groups in the EC2 instance.tf. So once we reach there, we are going to reference them. So we are going to define the AMI source datasource.tf resource, which will get the latest AMI for Amazon Linux 2 OS. So AMI hyphen datasource.tf. So let us take the example from the documentation. Documentation being AWS data source. Okay, so let me open it, and from here the data source also it is AWS underscore AMI. So let us take the example usage and make necessary changes. Okay, in here let me just copy paste it, and let me just comment it first. Get latest AMI ID for Amazon Linux 2 OS. Fine. Now, how we are going to do this? This is the name which we got, resource block we got, and this is the data block. Okay. So in data block, AWS underscore AMI is a data resource type, and AMZ underscore Linux, AMZ Linux 2, let me give the name, 2 is the local name of the resource. Executable resource, I won't be using any of the executable users over here, so I'm just removing it. Most recent equals to true. So as per the documentation, if more than one result, so if you go in here and if you see in here, if more than one result is returned, use the most recent AMI. So I will be using this to get the most recent AMI. The name rejects, I do not need to use any reject expressions. Owners, this should be Amazon. So for all Amazon Linux 2 AMIs, the owner is going to be Amazon. Now in filter, the name is given. So how do we get the values of AMI? You will be getting this if you go to your management console and to EC2. In here, just launch the one of the instance and take this value from here. Okay, and then go to AMI, make it as public images. Okay, and paste it in here. So in here you can see that you are getting this AMI name over here, and from here what I will be doing, I'll be taking till this. Okay, hyphen gp2 is there at last. I'll be taking this and I'll just paste it in here. So what will it do? Hyphen gp2. So what will it do? It means it needs to search for this AMI ID and then get the most recent one. So this is done, and then the next step is root device type, it is as EBS, let it be at it as it is, and this one also as virtualization type is HVM. So let it as it is. Let it be as it is. In addition to that, we need to define another filter to help us provide the x86 64-bit. So if you go in here and launch instances, you can get x86 64-bit and 64-bit ARM. But I need to create a EC2 instance with x86 64-bit. So for that we need one more filter, right? And let me just copy paste this one and just paste it in here. In here, let me give this name as architecture, and the values being x86 underscore 64. So when we call this, it should provide the latest VM in AWS. This completes defining the data source resource to get the latest AMI Linux 2 ID. So let us have some introduction of data source before proceeding further with our practical session. So data sources allow data to be fetched or computed for use elsewhere in Terraform configuration. Use of data sources allow a Terraform configuration to make use of information defined outside of Terraform or defined by another separate Terraform configuration. So outside of Terraform, somewhere the information is there which you want to bring using data source resource. With data sources, you will also be able to get the information about other Terraform configuration. A data source is accessed via a special kind of resource known as data source, declared using a data block. So this is the data block. Each data source resource is associated with a single data source, which determines the kind of object it reads and what kind of constraint arguments are available. Data resources have the same dependency resolution behavior as defined for managed resources. So whatever the things applicable for resource block, same things will be applicable for data block too. Then comes the meta arguments for data sources. Data resources support the provider meta argument as defined for managed resource with the same syntax and behavior. Data resources do not currently have any customization settings available for their lifecycle, but the lifecycle nested block, it should be nested block, is reserved in case any are added in the future version. Data resources support count and for each meta arguments as defined for managed resources with the same syntax and behavior. Each instance will separately read and from its data source with its own variant of the constraint arguments, producing an indexed result. We will check on these meta arguments as we go further ahead with the course. Now let us define the EC2 instance resource by defining the EC2 instance.tf configuration file. So let us go to our Visual Studio and let me give the name as EC2 instance.tf. Okay, and in here let me, in our previous session what we already create an EC2 instance. So let us take that template and modify it. That would be much more better. So EC2 create, this is what we did. Let me just copy it and just paste it in here. Now first thing, resource AWS instance my EC2 VM is fine. In here what we need to do is to get the AMI ID dynamically. For that purpose we need to go to that respective AMI data source, okay, and get that information. So in here this is what needed. Okay, let me just copy it and in here let me just paste it in here. Are we done here? No. In addition to that, what is present inside this .id? So let us go to here, let us go in here, and in this AMI data source let us go to attributes reference. So you can see here id is set to the id of the found AMI. So you need to get the id of your AMI, so the whole would be like this: data.aws underscore AMI dot AMZ linux2 dot id. Okay, and then comes the instance type. So instance type also will be taking the variable. Okay, so for instance type let us go to this variables.tf. so this is the one. Let me go in here and this is what I need to get: variable.instance type. Okay, let me remove this also from here. var.instance type, and similarly the key name. So the key name where we mentioned it in here. So the key name should be var.instance key pair. Okay, so this is done. And after this what we need to do is we need to give the security group ID also, right? So VPC underscore security underscore group underscore IDs equals to, we need to provide the list of security groups here. So let's go to EC2 security groups. Okay, and pass the values which all values we need to pass. This is one of them, and also this is one of them, SSH and web dot id. So in here you can see that the list item is being used, and I'm passing the values like this, okay, using the list item. So this one will be web. Fine. You should better copy paste rather than type in to avoid any typo mistakes. And these provisioners and all, let it be as it is, the connection type and all. So you have now dynamically brought the security groups AMI information and key name. Okay, so we are done till here. Now we are going to define the output values in output.tf. So in here, outputs.tf, and in before going and defining them, let us understand in high level what are these outputs, and for that let us go to back to our presentation. So output values are like the return values of a Terraform module and have several uses. A root module can use outputs to print certain values in the CLI output after running Terraform apply. A child module can use outputs to expose a subset of its resource attributes to a parent module. When using a remote state, root module outputs can be accessed by other configurations via a Terraform remote state data source. So now let us go back to our Visual Studio. So we are going to output public IP and public DNS. So we need to get the output for our AWS instance. So let's go to our AWS instance. So this is our resource AWS instance. Let's open it. We will be showing why we have opened it. Terraform output values, comment it, and then let me provide the EC2 instance public IP. Okay, then the output being instance underscore public IP. Okay, let me give the description as EC2 instance public IP. Okay, and the value. So AWS from instance, let me go to the attributes, and in here you can see the public DNS, private DNS, like this it should be mentioned. So what we need to do in here, the first thing with what we need to give in here is, from here I need to take AWS instance dot this one, right? Let me get this, let me put it in here, dot this, and then what we need to give, we need to give the public IP for this, right? So this is like public underscore IP. So let me put it in here. So this is done. Similarly, now let me provide the public DNS. Let me just copy it and paste it in here. So for public DNS also, it is like public DNS. Okay, so this is fine, and let me change this to public DNS. This one, the description, and in here let me change this. So we are done with all our blocks. Let me just save it and close them. Okay, so till now what all blocks are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. One more thing we need to provide in here, in this one, which is the key. We missed to put the key in here, right? So let me put the key. So I believe the key will be here. Yes, this is the key. Let me just copy it and paste it in here. So I have the key also. Now let me go to CMD, command prompt, and from command prompt let me just make the font a bit bigger. Okay, so that it's easy for you to see. Now we are going to execute the Terraform commands and then see the outputs and understand the observations and what happens after this command executes. So Terraform init, not from here, my bad. C Terraform bins YouTube third session. Okay, so I'm in here. Let me see whether it is running fine or not. So we have some errors. In line 11 it is having one error. So let me just go in here for EC2 security groups. So for EC2 security groups only, line 11, 38 and 46 is having one error. EC2 security groups, line 11. So in line 11, what is the error? This is the one, right? I missed to give it quotes. It should be in quotes. So this is fine. And then the other line is line 38. So in line 38 also the same problem. I missed this. Fine. And then line 46. So in line 46 also the same problem. So I need to save this and I should be fine right now. Let us see now. So it is again checking the versions. It is installing the HashiCorp and right now the version is 3.67. So it is installing that same. So I will pause the video until the initialization completes. So our Terraform init completed successfully. So one more thing I would like to say in here, that the version in our previous video it was 3.66. Now it has changed to, it has updated to 3.67. As I said earlier, how to see it? See here the version. It is 3.66 now. In our previous video session it was 3.66. So there's an update been provided. Now next thing what I need to do is I need to run the Terraform validate command. So it will be validating my configurations. So it is stating that the configuration is fine. Now let me run the execution plan with the command terraform plan. So this will be providing the execution plan. So it is providing one error, invalid AWS region vars.aws_region. Okay, as you can see in here, I have done the mistake by keeping this in double quotes. So this should be fine now. Let me just run it again and let's see whether it is running fine or not. So that execution plan has been run and you can see in here it is saying that it will be adding 3 resources. Also it is going to provide the output instance public DNS and public IP once the resources are built. Okay, so you can see in here the 3 resources which it will be creating. The first one being the AWS instance, okay, where it is taking the AMI ID, the T2 micro Terraform. So the AMI ID being this one, which we already saw in here, 33422. So it's taken from here, right? EC2 instance from this one, instance type, and the instance type from where it is taken? It is taken from here, right? No, sorry, not from here. From here, it is taken the instance type, and the data from the data source, it is getting this. Okay, so also the key name it is taken, the tags and all those are fine. Next it is taking the VPC-SSH, the security group VPC-SSH, and the security group VPC-WEB. So it will be taking this. Now let us run Terraform apply and check. So it is asking for the confirmation. Let me go give it as yes. So this will be taking some time to create. I will just pause the video until the creation is completed. So my instance has been created, and you can see in here that it is showing the outputs. So my public DNS being this and IP being this 3.89.133.193. So let us check whether this is the one which we got in here. So this was created 389. Let me paste it in here. So 389.133.193. So this is the same. Similarly, let me just copy this public DNS and paste it in here. EC2 389.133 compute. So my output is running fine and it is giving me the result. Now what I need to do, let's check the security groups also, whether two security groups have been allotted. Yes, VPC-SSH and VPC-WEB, and where port 22, port 80 and port 443 were opened for SSH port 22, for web 80 and 443. The outbound rules being the same for my VPC and web. Now what I need to do, I need to check whether my web server is running fine or not. So let me copy this and paste it in here. So this is running fine. And now one more thing I need to check, web server 1. So this is also running fine, and metadata.html. So this is also running fine. Now what I need to do, I need to check whether SSH connection is running fine or not from here. So for that, what I need to give the Terraform key. So I give the ppk file and let me just open. So you can see that I am able to log into the server also. And let me go to this. Let me see whether this is created or not. So you can see these have been created and the metadata.html is also there. So now what we need to do, we need to destroy the resource, right? Let me run the command terraform destroy. So this will be destroying, this will be asking for my permission whether I should be destroying it or not, and likewise it will be destroying my resource right now. So till now we have what we have seen how to create an EC2 instance with without hard coding your AMI ID, and also how to create separate security groups for the same, and how to get the output for my resources. Okay, so this is all for today's session. I hope you have liked the video. I hope you have liked the session. Please do like, share and subscribe. Also comment for any more videos you want to see. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.